Deep in the cold depths of the Kuiper Belt, beyond Neptune's orbit, the massive refugee fleet drifted helplessly through space. 300 ships, each the size of a small city, carried the hopes and lives of 2 million beings who had fled their dying star system. Captain First Light stood at the command center of the lead ship, his 4 eyes fixed on the status displays that grew more worrying by the hour. "Engineering report," he called out, his translator converting his musical language into the fleet's standard communication format. "Captain, quantum drive failures are now at 100%, replied Chief Engineer Starweaver, her holographic form flickering as she conserved power. "Life support systems are operating at 62% efficiency and declining. At current rates, we have perhaps 30 Earth days before critical failure." First Light's skin shifted from its normal golden hue to a deep blue of concern. Their mighty fleet, built with the most advanced technology from their home system, had been reduced to floating metal boxes. Whatever strange phenomenon they had encountered in this sector had rendered their quantum drives useless, and their sophisticated AI systems could not find a solution. "Status of the refugee ships?" he asked, dreading the answer. "The civilian vessels are struggling, Captain. Their systems are failing faster than ours. The children's ship reports their environmental controls are at 48%. Starweaver's voice carried the weight of 2 million lives. First Light moved to the main viewport, watching the endless field of stars. They had been so sure of their technology, so confident in their ability to reach the colony worlds. Now they were stranded in this primitive solar system, their advanced ships unable to move. What about the local planetary bodies? Any signs of advanced civilization? He asked, though he already knew the answer. They had been scanning for days. Navigator Deep Current approach, holding a data crystal. "Captain, we've detected something unusual. The third planet shows signs of civilization, but..." He hesitated. "Speak freely, Navigator." "They're using combustion engines, Captain. Primitive radio waves. Their most advanced vessels are barely capable of reaching their own moon. They're classified as a level 2 civilization at best." First Light's secondary hearts skipped a beat. "Show me." The main screen filled with images of Earth. Crude satellites orbited the blue planet. Primitive space stations crawled through low orbit. Rustic rockets pushed their way through the atmosphere using explosive chemicals. But something caught First Light's attention. "These readings," he said, pointing to a data stream. "They're constantly modifying their technology. Look at the variation in their designs." Starweaver moved closer to the display. "Their solutions are inefficient, crude." But her voice trailed off as she analyzed the data. "They solve problems differently than we do. Their entire approach to space travel ignores quantum mechanics entirely, yet they still manage to explore their solar system." First Light watched a recording of a human space launch. The humans strapped themselves to containers of explosive fuel, pointed them at the sky, and rode the controlled explosion into space. It was primitive, dangerous, and absolutely fascinating. "They adapt," he said quietly. "Look at their history. When their machines fail, they fix them with whatever they have available. They plan for failures. They expect things to go wrong." The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. "The High Council will never agree to contact them," Starweaver said. "They're barely space capable." First Light turned to face his crew. 2 million lives, he said firmly. 2 million of our people will die if we do nothing. Our quantum drives are dead. Our AI can't solve this. Perhaps, he looked back at the screen showing Earth. Perhaps we need a perspective that isn't bound by advanced technology. A species that knows how to solve problems without relying on quantum mechanics and artificial intelligence. He straightened to his full height. "Prepare a message for the High Council, and begin composing a distress signal in the humans' primitive radio format. We need their help, even if they don't understand our technology. Sometimes the simplest solutions come from those who have to work harder to reach the stars." As the message was prepared, First Light watched more footage of human space missions. They failed often, but they never gave up. They learned from each failure, adapted, and tried again. Their solutions weren't elegant, but they worked. Perhaps, he thought, being advanced isn't always about having the most sophisticated technology. Perhaps it's about knowing how to solve problems, no matter what tools you have. The distress signal was ready. With a single command, First Light sent humanity their first official contact with alien life. Not as conquering heroes or advanced saviors, but as clever problem solvers who might just save 2 million lives with their primitive ingenuity. Tom Wilson was having a normal night shift at the Global Space Monitoring Station in Alaska when his coffee cup started vibrating on his desk. At first, he thought it was another satellite debris alert, but the pattern was too regular, too deliberate. "Hey, come look at this," he called to his colleague, Mary Parker, who was half asleep in her chair. "I'm picking up something weird." Mary rolled her chair over to his station, suddenly wide awake as she saw the readings. "That's not random space noise," she said, leaning closer to the screen. "That's a pattern. Run it through the decoder." The computer worked for several minutes, processing the strange signal. When the translation appeared on their screen, both operators sat in stunned silence. Urgent. Assistance required. Refugee fleets stranded. 2 million lives at risk. Coordinates activity. "It has to be a prank," Mary said, but her voice trembled. "Right." Tom was already making calls. Within an hour, every major observatory in the world had turned their instruments toward the coordinates provided in the message. The UN Security Council was awakened for an emergency session, and space agencies worldwide went into overdrive. Dr. James Miller, known for solving the impossible Mars rover crash crisis last year, was pulled from his bed at 3 a.m. He arrived at Mission Control still wearing his old jacket over pajamas, a cup of black coffee in his hand. "Show me everything," he said to the room full of scientists and military officials. The images on the main screen left no room for doubt. 300 massive ships, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built, hung motionless in the Kuiper Belt. More data poured in as telescopes and sensors focused on the fleet. "Their technology is incredible," said Dr. Miller, studying the readings. "But something's wrong. Their engines aren't working. Look at these energy patterns." General Thompson, representing the UN Space Command, stepped forward. "Could it be a trap? An invasion force?" "With respect, General," Dr. Miller replied, pointing to the thermal readings, "those ships are losing power. Fast. If they wanted to invade, why pretend to be broken down in the middle of nowhere? They could have just approached Earth directly." The debate raged for hours until a second message arrived. "Request direct communication. Willing to share technology specifications. Please respond." Dr. Miller stood up, his coffee long forgotten. "They're not just asking for help," he said slowly. "They're offering to show us exactly what's wrong. They're trusting us with their technical data." The next 12 hours were a blur of activity. A secure communication channel was established, and the first video contact was made with the alien fleet. The sight of Captain First Light, with his 4 eyes and golden skin, caused quite a stir, but Dr. Miller remained focused on the problem at hand. "Your quantum drive specifications are fascinating," he said, looking through the translated technical documents. "But I don't understand why you can't just use conventional engines as backup." First Light's expression showed confusion. "Conventional engines? You mean combustion-based propulsion? That's far too primitive for ships of this size." Dr. Miller smiled. "Sometimes primitive is exactly what you need. Look, your quantum drives are elegant, beautiful even, but they're too complex. One problem affects the whole system. We humans learned a long time ago to keep backup systems simple. Really simple." He pulled out an old paper notebook, something that made the aliens stare in surprise, and started sketching. Your ships still have basic thrusters for maneuvering, right? And you have power, just not enough for quantum drives. Correct. But the thrusters alone couldn't possibly move the fleet. Not alone, no, Dr. Miller agreed. But what if we combined them with something else? Something so simple your advanced AI probably never even considered it. He held up his sketch. It showed the alien ships with massive makeshift solar sails, using the solar wind itself for propulsion, combined with gravity assists from the outer planets. First Light stared at the drawing. You want to turn our ships into space sailboats. Exactly. Dr. Miller grinned. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. We can use your thrusters for fine control and solar wind for the main push. It's slow, but it'll work. And more importantly, it can't break down because there's almost nothing to break. The aliens looked at each other in silence. They had expected human help with repairs, perhaps some unusual insight into quantum mechanics. Instead, they were being offered a solution from the age of wooden ships. The amazing part was, it might actually work. The main conference room at NASA headquarters was packed with an unusual mix of people. Along with the usual engineers and scientists, there were sailing experts from the Navy, old ship captains, and even a few retired lighthouse keepers. On the giant screen, Captain First Light and his alien crew watched with growing curiosity. Dr. Miller stood at the front, pointing to a simple whiteboard filled with drawings. The problem isn't just their quantum drives, he explained. It's their whole approach to space travel. They've forgotten how to work without computers. Show us what you mean, First Light said through the translator. Dr. Miller picked up an orange from the snack table. Your ships are stuck because they hit some kind of space storm that fried your quantum systems. But look at what happens when old sailing ships hit a storm. He held up the orange. They don't fight it. They roll with it. Captain Jack Thompson, an old sailor with gray hair and weathered hands, stepped forward. Ships have been crossing oceans for thousands of years without any fancy computers, he said. The sea can kill you just as quick as space can. You learn to work with nature, not against it. The aliens watched as Jack pulled out an old compass and put it on the table. Sometimes the simplest tools are the most reliable. The next few hours turned into a fascinating exchange of ideas. The aliens shared their complex ship designs, and the humans responded with centuries of sailing knowledge. Every time the aliens mentioned a problem, the humans had a simple, often ancient, solution. Your life support systems are failing because they're too connected, Dr. Miller explained. One part breaks, and the whole thing goes down. We learned that lesson the hard way with submarines. You need separate systems that can work on their own. A young engineer named Robert Lee jumped up with an idea. We can turn each deck of their ships into its own ecosystem, like old greenhouse ships that carried plants across oceans. Even if one section fails, the others keep working. First Light's skin changed color with surprise, but without central control. That's exactly the point, Dr. Miller interrupted gently. No central control means no central point of failure. Simple, separate systems that human crews can fix with basic tools. The alien engineers looked horrified at the idea of replacing their advanced systems with what they saw as primitive technology. But they couldn't argue with the logic. Their complex systems were failing, while humans had been living in space for decades using much simpler methods. Here's what we're going to do, Dr. Miller said, drawing on the whiteboard. First, we'll divide your ships into sections, each with its own independent life support. Old submarine tech, tried and true. Then we'll rig up solar sails using material from your cargo base. The sun's push is weak out there, but it's steady. He drew more diagrams. We'll use Jupiter's gravity to pick up speed. That's an old space travel trick we figured out back in the 1970s. Your maneuvering thrusters will give us fine control. It's not fast, but it'll get you moving again. First Light studied the plans. Our ship AIs say this has a low probability of success. Jack Thompson laughed. That's because your computers only know the perfect way to do things. Sometimes you need to get a little creative, a little messy. To demonstrate, Dr. Miller took apart the coffee machine in the room and rebuilt it using parts from 3 different machines. It wasn't pretty, but it made better coffee than before. "This is what humans do best," he said, handing a cup of coffee to his alien counterpart, who sniffed it curiously. "We take what we have and make it work. We call it jury-rigging, making quick fixes with whatever's available. It saved more lives than any advanced technology." The aliens watched as the humans continued working, mixing old knowledge with new problems, finding solutions in the most unexpected places. They began to understand that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology, but in their ability to work without it. "Sometimes," Dr. Miller said as they finalized the plans, "moving forward means looking backward first. Your quantum drives are amazing, but right now you need something that can't break down. Something any crew member can fix with basic tools." First Light looked at the simple drawings, the ancient sailing techniques adapted for space, and the basic mechanical systems that would replace their advanced technology. For the first time since their ships had stopped, he felt real hope. Sometimes the best solutions were the simplest ones. Captain Ann Roberts stood in her spacesuit, staring up at the massive alien ship that dwarfed her small shuttle. Behind her, 20 other shuttles carried teams of Earth's best engineers, each prepared to begin the largest rescue mission in human history. "Remember, folks," her voice crackled over the radio, "we're doing this the old-fashioned way. Keep it simple, keep it working." The alien ships stretched out into the darkness of the Kuiper Belt, their once gleaming hulls now dark as their power systems struggled to maintain basic life support. Each ship carried thousands of refugees, all depending on this crazy human plan to save them. "Beginning approach to Ship 1, Anne reported. "Teams 2 through 20 proceed to your assigned vessels." As her shuttle moved closer, an airlock opened on the alien ship's side. Inside, First Light and his crew watched nervously as the primitive human vessel docked with their advanced ship. To them, it looked like letting a wooden rowboat dock with a modern aircraft carrier. Anne floated through the airlock, carrying what looked to the aliens like a ridiculously large toolbox. "Right then," she said, her voice now coming through their translator. "Let's get to work." The next few hours showed the aliens something they had never seen before: humans working without computers. Anne's team mapped the ship's corridors with chalk marks, used manual tools to open panels, and ran physical wires to connect separate systems. "You're not using diagnostic tools?" one alien engineer asked, watching Anne test a circuit with a simple multimeter. "Can't trust complex tools right now," she replied, not looking up from her work. "Whatever killed your quantum drives might affect our advanced equipment too. Besides, electricity is electricity, no matter who built the ship." Outside, other teams were beginning the most visible part of Operation Solar Wind. Huge rolls of reflective material, originally meant for the aliens' cargo holds, were being transformed into massive solar sails. The humans had designed them using principles from Earth's ancient sailing ships, modified for the vacuum of space. "But the solar wind is so weak out here," an alien technician protested, watching the sails unfold. "That's why we're using really big sails," Anne explained with a grin. "And we got time. Better slow than dead in the water, or space, in this case." The aliens were surprised to see how much of the work was done by hand. Humans in spacesuits physically welded support structures, ran cables, and rigged the giant sails like ancient mariners preparing for a sea voyage. They had expected robots and computers, but instead got human ingenuity and muscle power. In the command center, Dr. Miller was teaching the alien crew how to navigate using the new hybrid system. "Your thrusters will give us fine control," he explained, drawing on a paper star chart. "But the main push comes from the sun. It's like tacking against the wind in a sailboat, just in 3 dimensions." "And if the sails fail?" First Light asked. "That's why we're installing 3 backup systems," Anne said as she floated back into the command center. "Manual controls, emergency thrusters, And if everything else fails, we've got space tugs standing by. Always have a backup for your backup. That's the human way. The aliens watched in fascination as more ships were modified. Each vessel was getting its own set of sails, its own independent control systems, and most importantly, its own team of human engineers trained to keep it running without relying on complex computers. "Your species continues to surprise us," First Light said to Anne. "You take such pride in doing things the hard way." Anne laughed as she tightened a bolt on a control panel. "Not the hard way, the reliable way. Any system can work when everything's perfect. The trick is building something that works even when everything goes wrong." As the first day of work ended, 20 ships had been modified. The huge solar sails caught the faint sunlight, making the ships look like giant silver butterflies against the black of space. It wasn't pretty, and it certainly wasn't elegant, but it would work. "Tomorrow we start on the next batch," Anne announced to her teams. "Remember, we're not just rigging ships here, we're saving lives. 2 million of them. So let's show our new friends what humans can do with some basic tools and a bit of creative thinking." The aliens watched the human crews return to their shuttles, still amazed that such a primitive species could tackle such a complex problem with simple solutions. Perhaps they realized they had been too quick to dismiss the value of basic technology and human resourcefulness. Nobody saw the solar flare coming. The first warning came when the aliens' remaining sensors started failing, one by one. Inside the command ship, screens flickered and died as the electromagnetic wave rushed toward the fleet. "What's happening?" First Light asked, watching his advanced systems crash. Anne Roberts, who was checking the new manual controls, looked up at the emergency light flashing. "Solar flare," she said calmly. "A big one." She grabbed her radio, an old-style device that the aliens had considered primitive. All teams switched to backup systems. Now, the aliens watched in horror as their sophisticated technology shut down completely. Life support, navigation, communications, everything went dark. But then something unexpected happened. The humans didn't panic. "Everyone stay calm," Anne's voice crackled over the emergency radio channel. "This is why we installed manual backups. Bridge crew, check your mechanical gauges. Engine room, switch to direct power lines." Across the fleet, human engineers pulled out flashlights and began working by hand. The aliens stood helplessly as their computer interfaces died, but the humans simply switched to paper charts and basic tools. "How are you still communicating?" First Light asked, amazed that the human radios still worked. "Old tech," Anne explained, shining her flashlight on a basic radio set. "Simple enough that electromagnetic interference can't hurt it much. Your fancy quantum communicators are great, but sometimes you need equipment that's too basic to break." Through the ship's windows, they could see the massive solar sails beginning to glow from the incoming radiation. Some of the aliens feared they would disintegrate, but the human engineers had planned for this too. "Release the outer sail layer," Anne commanded through her radio. Teams of space-suited humans began manually detaching the outermost layer of the solar sails, letting them take the brunt of the radiation. "Watch this," she said to First Light. "Simple physics. The outer layer burns away, but protects everything underneath, like letting a campfire's outer logs burn to protect the inner ones." The alien captain observed in amazement as the humans coordinated their response, using nothing but basic radio calls and pre-planned signals. When even the radios began to suffer from interference, they switched to signal lamps, using simple light patterns to communicate between ships. "Is that Morse code?" First Light asked, recognizing the pattern from his studies of Earth's history. "Sure is," Anne replied, while directing her team using hand signals. Sometimes the oldest solutions are the best ones. Can't break a light signal. In the engine room, human engineers worked with their alien counterparts, teaching them how to control the ship's systems without computers. They used manual valves, mechanical gauges, and basic electrical switches, technology that the aliens had considered obsolete centuries ago. Your backup systems have backup systems, one alien engineer noted, watching the humans work. Redundancy saves lives, replied Tom, a human engineer, as he rewired a control panel by flashlight. We learned that lesson the hard way back on Earth. Everything important needs at least 3 ways to keep working. Hours passed as the solar storm raged. While the aliens' advanced ships would have been helpless, the jury-rigged human systems kept everyone alive. Life support ran on direct mechanical connections. Navigation relied on basic stellar observations. The modified ships rode out the storm like ancient sailing vessels in rough seas. Finally, the storm began to pass. As radiation levels dropped, some of the alien systems slowly came back online. They were shocked to find that not a single life had been lost, thanks to human preparation and simple technology. I don't understand, First Light said to Anne as they watched the emergency teams complete their work. Your species is so far behind us in technology, but you survived this crisis better than we could have. Anne smiled as she checked a mechanical pressure gauge. Advanced technology is great, she said, until it stops working. Humans learned long ago to keep the simple solutions around. Because simple doesn't mean primitive, it means reliable. As the fleet began to restore power, the aliens looked at their ships with new eyes. Between their own advanced technology and the humans' basic but reliable systems, they now had the best of both worlds. Perhaps they realized true advancement meant knowing when to use complex solutions and when to keep things simple. The crisis had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology, but in their ability to solve problems without it. 2 weeks after the solar storm, the massive fleet had changed beyond recognition. The ships now looked like a strange mix of advanced alien technology and old-fashioned sailing vessels. Huge solar sails stretched out for miles, catching the faint sunlight from the distant sun, while teams of humans and aliens worked together at manual control stations. Dr. Miller stood with First Light in the command center, watching the navigation display. The screen now showed both alien quantum readings and simple human instruments working together. Ready for the first major test? Dr. Miller asked, holding his trusty paper notebook. First Light's skin shifted to a color that humans had learned meant nervous excitement. You're sure this will work? Using Jupiter's gravity to, what did you call it? A slingshot maneuver, Dr. Miller said, sketching the path. We've been using it since the 1970s. Your ships might be advanced, but gravity works the same for everyone. Across the fleet, preparation announcements echoed in both alien language and English. Anne Roberts' voice came over the radio from her position in the lead navigation ship. All ships begin synchronized sail adjustment, she commanded, just like we practiced. Remember your old sailing lessons. The aliens watched in amazement as the fleet began to move as one. Teams of humans and aliens worked the manual controls together, adjusting the massive solar sails to catch the particle streams from the sun. It wasn't fast like their quantum drives, but the steady push was undeniable. Look at these readings, an alien engineer said, pointing to both the quantum display and a simple mechanical gauge. The human measurements match our advanced sensors perfectly. Sometimes, Tom replied from his engineering station, a spring and a needle are all you need to measure something. No computer required. As the fleet approached Jupiter, the real test began. The massive gas giant's gravity field was both their greatest help and biggest danger. Get it wrong, and the ships could be pulled apart or thrown off course. Beginning gravity assist maneuver, Anne announced. All ships maintain formation. Use your backup systems if anything fails. First Light watched as his mighty fleet, once the pride of their civilization's technology, now moved like a group of sailing ships crossing an ocean of space. The humans had taught their crews how to work without relying entirely on computers, how to trust their instincts and basic instruments. Your people keep surprising us, First Light said to Dr. Miller. We thought you would try to fix our quantum drives. Instead, you taught us how to work without them. Dr. Miller smiled as he watched the gravity readings climb. Sometimes moving forward means taking a step back first. Your technology is amazing, but you forgot something we humans learned the hard way. Always have a backup plan. The fleet swung around Jupiter in a graceful arc, picking up speed from the planet's gravity. It was an elegant dance of physics, one that humans had mastered decades ago with much simpler spacecraft. Speed increasing, called out one of the monitoring stations. We're now moving faster than we could have with emergency thrusters alone. The aliens were amazed to see their ship's velocity climbing. The combination of solar sails, gravity assist, and careful navigation was working better than their projections had suggested. The fleet was not only moving again, but building up enough speed to reach their destination. Think of it this way. Anne explained to a group of alien engineers as they checked their instruments. Your quantum drives are like a sports car, fast and efficient, but one broken part and you're stuck. What we built is more like a bicycle. It's slower, but it's reliable and can be fixed with basic tools. The next few hours proved the success of the human approach. Ship after ship successfully completed the gravity assist maneuver, building up speed for their journey. The fleet was now moving steadily through space, powered by nothing more complex than light, gravity, and human ingenuity. We're officially on course for the colony worlds. First Light announced to cheers from both humans and aliens, using a method that would have seemed primitive to us just weeks ago. Dr. Miller patted the manual control panel. There's nothing primitive about something that works, he said, and sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution. As the fleet moved away from Jupiter, the aliens began to understand something important. True advancement wasn't just about having the most sophisticated technology. It was about knowing how to solve problems with whatever tools you had available. The humans hadn't just saved their ships. They'd taught them a whole new way of thinking about technology and problem solving. 3 months after the rescue operation began, the alien fleet gathered for one final meeting with their human saviors. The ships now looked strange but beautiful, their quantum technology working alongside simple human solutions, massive solar sails gleaming in the starlight. The main hall of the lead ship was packed with both species. Dr. Miller and Roberts and their teams stood before the alien High Council, who had traveled from distant systems to witness this unprecedented event. The High Council leader, an ancient alien with shimmering silver skin, stepped forward. "We must admit," she said through the translator, "when First Light requested help from Earth, many of us thought it was a mistake. We believed a Level 2 civilization couldn't possibly help our advanced fleet." She paused, her color shifting to show deep respect. "We were wrong." First Light stood beside Dr. Miller, both of them looking at a simple mechanical compass sitting next to a quantum navigator on the ship's control panel. "My people have traveled space for 1,000 years," First Light said. "But we forgot something important along the way. Something humans never forgot." "And what's that?" asked one of the council members. "That advanced doesn't always mean better," Anne replied, holding up her old toolbox. "Sometimes the best solution is the simplest one." The High Council leader nodded. "This is why we are here today. Earth has proven itself not just capable, but wise. We officially recognize humanity as an advanced civilization, not for their technology, but for their way of thinking." Dr. Miller looked surprised. "But our technology is centuries behind yours." "Technology is not wisdom," the leader replied. "When our fleet was stranded, we contacted many advanced civilizations. They all refused to help, saying their systems were incompatible with ours. Only humans thought to solve the problem without relying on advanced technology." She gestured to the modified ships around them. "You didn't just save 2 million lives. You taught us a valuable lesson about true innovation." First Light stepped forward. "That's why the Council has agreed to establish a permanent embassy on Earth, not just to share technology, but to learn from humans, to remember the value of simple solutions." The announcement caused excitement among both humans and aliens, but the High Council wasn't finished. The leader raised her hand for silence. "We're also creating a new position in our fleet," She continued. Every ship will now have a human innovations officer, someone trained in human problem-solving methods. Because sometimes the most advanced solution is remembering how to solve problems without advanced technology. Tom, the engineer who had helped rewire multiple ships by hand, grinned. Wait until we teach you about duct tape. The room filled with laughter as humans explained the joke to their confused alien friends. Over the past months, both species had learned to appreciate each other's perspectives. There's one more thing, First Light added. News of what happened here has spread. Earth is becoming known throughout the galaxy as the civilization that makes the impossible work anyway. Other species are already requesting human advisors for their engineering projects. Dr. Miller looked at the modified ships, each one a perfect blend of quantum technology and simple mechanical backups. We never set out to impress anyone, he said. We just wanted to help. And that, the High Council leader replied, is exactly why your species is remarkable. You solve problems not to prove your advancement, but simply because they need solving. As the ceremony concluded, humans and aliens gathered to say their goodbyes. The fleet would soon depart for their colony worlds, carrying not just their original quantum technology, but also solar sails, mechanical backups, and lessons in human ingenuity. Anne stood at a window, watching the stars. First Light joined her. You know, she said, when we first got your distress call, everyone thought we were too primitive to help. First Light's skin rippled with amusement. And now the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy want to learn your primitive methods. Perhaps being primitive isn't what we thought it was. It's not about being primitive or advanced, Dr. Miller said, joining them. It's about being adaptable, about remembering old solutions while creating new ones. As the humans prepared to return to Earth, they left behind more than just modified ships and backup systems. They left a new way of thinking about progress, one that valued simplicity alongside complexity, basic skills alongside advanced technology. The galaxy would never look at Earth quite the same way again. Sometimes the most advanced civilization isn't the one with the fanciest technology. It's the one that remembers how to solve problems without it.